So this might be a weird one, since if you came to this video naturally because you're subscribed to this channel or you're just already an anime fan, then this video probably isn't for you. See, while I took a few months off from making videos, I submerged myself back into the world of comics podcasting. I'd been reading DC and Marvel since I learned how to read, and podcasting about it was my gateway into online content creation, and it was nice to go back and check in on everything. And while it was fun to revisit those communities and catch up with everybody, I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that there's so much anime out there that fans of American comics would love but haven't tried or don't even know about. And part of that's a generational thing. All of my contemporaries in that space are in their 30s and 40s, while anime fandom tends to skew younger, and a lot of adults just don't know why they should even care about anime at all. And I think that sucks. Because I'm their age. I came from where they are right now, and embracing the medium of anime has given me some of my favorite series, stories, and characters from any entertainment medium ever, and I want to give the rest of them the opportunity to make that discovery as well. So I hope my usual subscribers will indulge me while I talk directly to that group, to the older comic book fans and podcasters who don't yet realize what anime has to offer, but would be tremendous fans of anime if they did. And I'm going to start by dropping the bombshell that you actually already do like anime. You grew up watching cartoons like G.I. Joe, Ghostbusters, Transformers, the Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man and his amazing friends. That's the stuff you were into. That's the stuff that's always held a special place in your heart. That's what you have a nostalgic fondness for, even as an adult. Well, guess what? That means you already have a love and appreciation for the people who make anime. Let me tell you about Toei Animation, a studio responsible for as many different anime series as there are stars in the sky. But you'd likely know them as the studio that made Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon. In the 1980s, Toei did a lot of animation outsourced from America. Things like G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, and G.I. Joe the Movie were both animated in Japan by Toei Animation. My Little Pony the Movie was animated by Toei. Most of the episodes of Gem and the Holograms were animated by Toei. Every show I listed before, Ghostbusters, Transformers, The Turtles, Spider-Man and his amazing friends, the list goes on, all of them were made by an anime studio. But it's not even just Toei. Both Thundercats and Silverhawks were animated by the Pacific Animation Corporation. The Centurions was animated by Sunrise, most famous for the Gundam franchise. If you were a kid in America in the 1980s and you liked an American cartoon, chances are it was animated either partly or entirely by an anime studio in Japan. And right now you're probably thinking, okay, that's nice, but there's more to a show than just the animation. And liking the American shows these studios helped out on doesn't automatically mean you like the anime that they make entirely themselves. So let's look at some of the anime series you've already watched and grown up with, maybe even without realizing it was anime, because they were dubbed into English and the internet didn't exist yet. Voltron, Defender of the Universe, is actually a mashup of two different anime series. In much the same way that Super Sentai Zyuranger was edited and dubbed to become Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, these two giant robot shows were chopped up and combined into a single series that aired on American television, spawning multiple TV series, comic books, and toys. Battle of the Planets is an English dub of Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, and stayed pretty faithful to the original, all things considered, though only 85 of the full run of 105 episodes made it over here. At least not until a decade later, when the series was re-edited, redubbed, and re-released under the name G-Force, with most of that missing content put back in. The second pass at this series is actually really refreshing, considering the typical approach to anime localization at the time was to change as much as possible to make it a product that would appeal to a Western audience. No show embodies that better than Robotech. This show is a mashup of 3 unrelated shows that just happen to look visually similar. They did this because the goal was to have a series that could enter syndication, and at the time that required a minimum of 65 episodes. So these 3 different shows were given the same name and an overarching story about a war fought across 3 generations to tie them together. Not much of the original storylines survived, as making use of the animation was the most important thing during this Frankensteining process, but the fact remains we still establish a pretty strong base for you getting into anime. You grew up watching shows that were secretly anime, and all the shows you loved that weren't technically anime were still made by anime studios. You very likely have a nostalgic reverence for all of it, and it all feeds directly into your love of science fiction, fantasy, and superheroes that you still have to this day. But you're probably still not convinced. You've probably still got a list of reasons not to give anime a chance, and I'd wager those reasons are anime's reputation for being too violent and too sexual, and that the series are too long and the animation quality is too low. And all of those are true sometimes. There's a ridiculous amount of anime made each year. Way too much. It's actually a big problem in the industry. So there's going to be times where corners get cut. Sometimes entire shows will be made quickly and on the cheap just to get a product out the door. And sometimes cringeworthy tropes will be leaned into because it's easy. I'm not here to tell you that any of that's not true, because it is. A lot of anime is crap, and you are right to not want to watch it. But I also know for a fact that you know how it feels to see the industry you love misunderstood and misrepresented by a general public that thinks it's all kid stuff with no substance or redeeming value. To have some of the greatest stories ever told intentionally passed over by people who'd otherwise love them for no other reason than they happen to be presented in the medium of comic books. Think about all of that gorgeous artwork that barely anyone ever gets to see. All of those amazing characters that may never make it to the big screen. All of those creators who deserve to be household names the world over. Yeah, even the best anime can have parts that are cringy and cheap and feed into the negative anime stereotype. But avoiding anime as a whole because of that is no different than all of the people who have never read a comic book in their lives, yet still generalize the entire medium as being for children, and look down on adults who enjoy it. Don't do that. Don't treat anime the same way so many treat comics, not when you already know better. Especially since, if you can bring yourself to look beyond that stuff, to push it aside and see the shows that aren't immediately noticeable at first glance, you're going to find some amazing works of art that are tailored specifically to you and the things you already love. You'll find My Hero Academia, the story of a young boy and his class of would-be heroes attending a superhero school in a world where government oversight like Marvel's Superhero Registration Act has been a fact of life for heroes since the beginning. How do these laws dictate a hero's actions? What does it mean for their place in society? How does this recontextualize the existence and definition of villains? And what does it mean to embody the hope and idealism of superheroes within a system and society like this? Every single interesting question raised by Marvel's Civil War arc that ended up being forgotten or unexplored is the basis for this fantastic show, and I can't recommend it highly enough. Gurren Lagann is a Green Lantern show. It just is. A young man with nothing special about him randomly gains possession of some advanced technology that he wears as jewelry and lets him express his willpower in the form of green light that can do miraculous things as he goes on the most cosmic adventure I've ever seen. Kyle Rayner, Hal Jordan, and Guy Gardner are characters in this show. If you've ever felt sad or angry or disappointed that Green Lantern the Animated Series got canceled, you owe it to yourself to watch this series to the end. Comic Girls is about a group of young manga authors living in a dorm and trying to get their professional careers off the ground. It's a story about honing your craft, finding your self-confidence, learning to have a healthy relationship with your own work, and the struggle of trying to express yourself creatively when you're not good at expressing yourself in general. You already love the medium of comics. You already have an appreciation for the creators and the work they put into their craft. This is a comedic drama about finding what it takes to do that for a living. SSSS Gridman is a must-watch for anyone who's ever liked Godzilla, Power Rangers, or anything where giant monsters stomp through a city. This anime is technically a sequel to Gridman the Hyper Agent, a live-action series from the 1990s that was aired in America as Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, but the connections to the live-action series are more icing on the cake than anything else, and the anime can be enjoyed on its own terms as an exciting love letter to this genre in general, right down to the giant monsters that are painstakingly animated to look like people wearing rubber costumes while stomping through a model city. It's a surprisingly deep exploration of what it means to be a fan of something geeky, and why you should never lose sight of the value real life holds when you immerse yourself in escapist fiction. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is perfect for anyone who loves the concept of legacy characters. It's essentially a multi-generational anthology series, with each part taking place in a different decade, following a different group of characters, taking place in a different part of the world, dealing with everything ranging from vampires to a Twin Peaks-style murder mystery to a war against the Mafia. This series has been going for a long time, and does show its age in a number of very unpleasant ways, but I still think it's worth trying out, even if only for the sheer ambition behind the project. Little Witch Academia is the easiest elevator pitch in history. It's Harry Potter, except it's animated, and they're witches. Are you nostalgic for the carefree days of Potter fandom before Fantastic Beasts and J.K. Rowling's Twitter account ruined everything? Then you are the protagonist of this show. As a kid, she was awestruck by magic and the wizarding world and all of its potential, and is chasing her dream of becoming a part of it, even as the crushing reality of the world tells her that the dream is dead and there's no more magic to be found anymore. If you want a genuinely fantastic show that'll tap into the experience of what it's like to hold on to something dear to you that society says you should have grown out of, or you just want a series that takes you back to the glory days of Harry Potter, watch this show. Attack on Titan is a show that's just plain great at everything. It's an action series, a highly emotional drama, a political thriller, a horror, a mystery, and it succeeds at being all of these while doing a better job than most other shows that specialize in being just one of them. If that wasn't enough, the show is so adept at developing every single character you ever meet that by the end of season 4, I'm hesitant to call anyone in the show a minor character, because every single one of them has a name and a personality and a backstory that I know by heart. Forget just anime, I wish more stories in general, in every medium, put this much attention, care, and planning into the development of its cast right from the start. On top of all of that, the show's got gorgeous animation that gives way to some of the most exciting and kinetic fight choreography I've ever seen. These people are trying to deal with the tragedy of a war against creatures they barely understand while struggling to learn the truth of the world they live in, and I cannot look away. Princess Principal is a political spy thriller set in a steampunk world. Espionage and deception are the basis of every mission, saving the action set pieces for when things go wrong, or when it's time to eliminate a target. The steampunk setting is used very effectively to illustrate the class divide at the heart of the show's overall narrative, and all of the steampunk technology is well designed enough to have very understandable and even believable level of functionality that makes it feel grounded in this fleshed out world. Even the one piece of technology that's just straight up science fiction has enough sensible limitations placed on its operations that it doesn't feel outlandish, despite letting someone ignore the laws of physics for a few minutes at a time. Mob Psycho 100 is an exploration of what it takes to be happy when you're emotionally disconnected from most other people. The superpowers possessed by the various characters are used as a metaphor for the fact that natural talent will only get you so far, and you have to actually work for what you want to achieve if you expect it to mean something once you have it. The show's about happiness, entitlement, what it means to be yourself, and what you'll give to truly connect honestly with another person. Beautiful Bones is like the BBC's Sherlock if the main character wasn't a complete narcissistic train wreck. It's mostly a Mystery of the Week series, but the mysteries are always fair, and the audience always has enough information that we could figure it out before the reveal at the end of each episode. There is an overarching story running in the background of the season that falls flat by the end, mostly betting on a season 2 that never came, but the emotional climax for the characters more than makes up for it. A Place Further Than the Universe asks a very simple yet important question. How far would you go to get closure so you can move forward with your life? Finding that answer takes these girls halfway around the world on a trip that lets them each look for the piece of themselves that's been missing. The adventure, the escape, the acceptance, the closure. It's the kind of show that you'll finish and immediately wish you'd done more with your life. And that's not a bad thing. I've seen so many people leave their comfort zones and go do things that they'd only ever talked about, seen things that they'd only ever imagined, all because of the effect this show and its infectious spirit had on them. Because sometimes the harder something is to do, the more reason it should be done. And then there's anime movies, which, you know what, I'll give you 3, just to save time. I'll limit it to 3 fairly recent films that impressed the hell out of me. A Silent Voice is the story of what it means to be made into an outsider by the group that you were once part of, as well as what it means to have never had the chance to be part of it in the first place. Be aware going in that this film takes an emotional, honest look at subjects like bullying, depression, and suicide, and manages to treat all of them with the proper respect and gravity they deserve. It's an incredible story, and if I'm being honest, this is one of the prime examples of an anime you should show someone who thinks the medium is something lesser, because I have yet to see anything live action that treats these subjects half as well. Dragon Ball Super Broly is the perfect movie to sit down with if you just want a showcase of thrilling fight scenes presented in beautiful, flowing animation. There's not much else to this one, it's just a fun ride. Yeah, the experience is enhanced if you already know these characters, but honestly, the movie gives you everything relevant you need to know, and the real star here is the animation and the fight choreography. It's a martial arts action movie starring superpowered aliens at the top of the world that looks like this. What more could you want? Your Name is a Freaky Friday body swap movie about 2 teenagers who keep switching bodies at random intervals, and that's about all I want to tell you, because it isn't just a Freaky Friday body swap movie, it's also another genre of movie entirely, and it's an impactful moment when the reveal comes. Just know going in that it's got all of the hijinks, romance, comedy, and drama you'd expect from one of these, plus something else that adds an entirely new layer of dimension to something you've seen 100 times before. This same team made Weathering With You, a movie I can't wait to see for the animation alone, because, as you can tell, everything they make is remarkably beautiful. And this isn't even scratching the surface. There is a high-quality anime out there that caters to your interest, no matter what that interest is. Cooking, figure skating, camping, ballroom dancing, gambling, motorcycles, music, video games. You name it, it's there. You like sports? Here's a whole pile of critically acclaimed, fan-favorite shows that use everything the medium is capable of to really sell sports as the greatest thing in the world. In my honest opinion, it's not a question of whether or not there's an anime out there that's perfect for you, but a question of which one. And finding it can be as simple as doing a search based on your other interests. Google sports anime, or superhero anime, or cooking anime, or whatever appeals to you the most. Or look up some of the billion top 10 anime lists that are floating around out there and get some ideas from them. How you go about this is really up to you because, and I cannot stress this enough, there is no right or wrong place to start watching anime. A lot of people will try to tell you that there are certain series that are newbie-friendly, and certain series that new viewers should avoid like the plague because you wouldn't get it. One of the things that regularly disappoints me about fandom in general is the way that we tend to gatekeep, even if unintentionally, and drive away newcomers who had genuine interest in trying the medium out. If you've seen all the hype for Neon Genesis Evangelion and you're curious about it, then go watch it. It doesn't matter if you know anything about the creator or the circumstances of how and why the show was made. It doesn't matter if you understand the show's place in the history of mecha anime, or if you've ever even heard the word mecha before in your life. If something about the show, anything at all, makes you want to watch it, then watch it. A lot of people will look at a show like Evangelion and tell you not to watch it, not to start there, because the show plays with all of these genre tropes, as well as the expectations of informed viewers, in such a way that someone totally new couldn't get the most out of the show because they don't have the proper background. And honestly, fuck that argument. Something I wholeheartedly reject is the idea that one must understand a piece of entertainment on multiple levels in order to derive enjoyment from it. You don't need to understand everything about Evangelion to like Evangelion. There just needs to be something about the show that resonates with you and keeps you interested. Maybe it's the characters, maybe it's the animation, maybe it's the world building, maybe it's the music. Maybe you like the fact that you don't know anything about it and enjoy trying to figure it out. Enjoy thinking about a story with a lot of subtext. Madoka Magica is another show that often gets brought up as a place no new viewer should ever start, for all the same reasons as Evangelion. And you know what? Madoka was my first magical girl show. Before that, my only exposure to that entire genre was like 2 episodes of Sailor Moon I saw maybe 10 years prior. I had this vague idea that it was cartoon Power Rangers for girls, but that's it. And I loved Madoka. It was an emotional roller coaster filled with sympathetic characters, a series of surprise twists that shocked the hell out of me, and an amazing sense of style in its design. Is it a show that you'd get more out of if you were more familiar with other magical girl shows that came before? Sure. But that really just means you'd be more acutely aware of the tropes. Because what far too few people seem to understand is that Madoka Magica is a good story all by itself. So is Evangelion. Because as much as we like to elevate Eva, that show wears its themes on its sleeve and is sometimes literally shouting them at the viewer. New fans will get it. Or just do what I did. Watch whatever happens to be right in front of you. I got into anime because I found Toonami one day and just started watching whatever they decided to air. Then Netflix came along and I took a look at their anime section and just started watching anything that looked superficially interesting. And that's all there is to it. There's no trick to getting started, there's no optimal path to take, there's no perfect starter show. I watched Madoka, Psycho Pass, and Fate Zero purely because they were there. And I had a great time with all of them. Just watch the first thing that piques your interest and see where that experience takes you. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, especially since you were already an anime fan all along and didn't even know it. Oh, and watch it in whatever language you want. A lot of people will tell you that English dubs are trash. Ignore that crap and do what's best for you. Maybe you prefer being in your own language, maybe you just don't like subtitles. Who cares? There's no wrong way to watch anime. Don't listen to anyone who tells you different. So I think I've done about as much as I can here. I made you aware of your predisposition to enjoy and even love shows made by anime studios. I reminded you of anime you grew up watching in the 80s, whether you knew it was anime or not. I recommended about 38 different shows and movies, and explained what makes most of them special. And hopefully I helped you see that the medium of anime is much larger, more varied, and more substantial than you ever thought it could be. Now it's up to you. Maybe this video won't change anyone's mind, maybe nobody will even watch it all the way to the end. But in my opinion, if even one single person watches this and tries getting into anime and finds something they like, then this was worth it. Because the best part about being in the anime community is sharing the love with more people. Thanks.